know, and when people know where you stand, it makes them nervous. It makes them upset because they know no matter what they do, they cannot coerce, manipulate, or bully you. So they kind of, they don't want to deal with you because they know if they say certain things, if they try to do certain things, you're one of those people that's going to call BS where you see it.
Oh, I think I hear a doorbell.
Yeah, man, we got the doorbell, y'all. This is Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Hold on 1 second.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Call in to join the conversation at 646-668-8393.
And with that being said, welcome to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. You are on the line. Who do we have the pleasure of speaking with this evening?
Hey, I'm Grant Maloy Smith.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, Mr.
Maloy
Smith, how are you doing? I'm so glad that you called in. We were talking about just what's going on in the world. That's what we do at the beginning. But you are a very doing quite well in your career over there in Rhode Island, singing all kinds of music. I guess, how would you categorize your music? When I looked at it, it definitely had some country elements, but it also had some folk elements and some other elements as well. So how would you categorize your music?
Well, you nailed it. I'm not in any one category. So if you're sort of like country but not exactly, if you're sort of like folk music but not exactly, if you're a little bit like bluegrass music but not exactly, they put you in this category invented a few years ago called Americana or American Roots. So that's where I live. I'm in that world. I like the land of misfit toys. I'm not exactly in any one of those major categories, but I'm in this kind of a hybrid one.
And you seem like you're doing quite well in that hybrid category. Like I said, when I read your bio and read about what you're doing, you've been winning all kinds of awards. And one of the things you did that I really wanted to talk to you about in a little bit is you did a salute. We were talking about a gentleman. I believe that gentleman that you were talking about earlier, Dean, was a veteran, but you actually did a song for the veterans. And I was just wondering, were you a veteran yourself, or what made you decide that you wanted to do this song that was going to salute the veterans? Because when I saw it, it looked like it got a lot of play, got picked up by one of the veterans organizations. It's almost like their theme song. So I just want to know whether you were a veteran yourself and how that song came about.
I'm not, although my dad was, and his father and his brother and a lot of people in my family. But you know what had happened, because I met a young man who was a veteran in an airport. He was like 25 or 6 years old. This is back in March. I was just flying from one place to another. I started talking, and he had a prosthetic leg. And so we started talking, and it turned out he had lost it over in Iraq, like so many people did. And I was just taken by his spirit. You know, he had one of these shining. I'm sure you come across people in your life that you just know they have kind of a special light inside them that they can't be negative about anything. They always see the good side of everything, and you know, they can turn a sow's ear into a silk purse, as my grandmother used to say. So he was on his way to go to college. He said, you know, I'm going to be the first person in my family's history ever to go to college because I served in the military. And I'm not sad or broken up about anything. And by the way, you wouldn't believe what I can do with this leg. It's like a rocket ship. I can jump up and touch the ceiling in the airport. It's really amazing. And look, you know, life is hard. People get hurt in life just every day, much less going to war. So, you know, I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to dwell on that. I'm going to dwell on the positive and get my life back together again now and go off to college and be the first one to ever go to college in my whole family. About a week later, I got home and I said, I got to do something to honor people like not just him, one person, but all the brave men and women who go over and they do things that, you know, that I don't want to do it. I'm sure most people don't, even they don't want to do it, but they do it anyway. And they're brave and they sacrifice a lot. And their families do too. You know, their families sacrifice. If they have a wife or kids, they don't see, I didn't see my dad sometimes for 9 months at a time because he was on an aircraft carrier. And that's hard on a kid. You know, it's hard on the whole family. And I'm very proud that the song was chosen by the National Veterans Foundation to be their official theme song just a few weeks ago and just before Veterans Day. And that means a lot to me that they thought enough of it, and we're trying to use the song to raise money. They're a nonprofit organization, really highly rated about how they use their money, and I wanted to make sure if I was going to align with an organization, that it was one that had its 5-star record in terms of they get money in, but they don't just all drive around in Mercedes Benzes. That they put the extremely high percentage of the money toward the work that they do. They do all kinds of counseling for the veterans. They were the first organization to figure out, to even give a name to PTSD. We all know what it is now, but back then they just used to say someone coming back from war, they act differently, they're a little bit crazy. They didn't really understand that it was a real thing, that needs to be treated. So anyway, I don't mean to go on forever, but I'm just very honored that they chose my song as their theme song.
And you should definitely be honored, and you're right. A lot of times people don't understand what veterans go through. I've actually got a cousin that is retired military, but he made it up to one of the higher ranks in the military. I think as a lieutenant colonel, but he served in the military, and he did a couple of tours around definitely the Middle East, around Iraq and other places in the Middle East. So he's definitely done that, and like you said, he was gone from his family quite a bit doing that kind of travel. So you're absolutely right. And a lot of times, even if later on we decide that we don't agree with the reason for the war, which is, of course, what happened in Vietnam, and some people maybe think that might be the case even with some of these, we cannot belittle what the soldiers go through, because, like I said, they are just carrying out the orders as they are supposed to. So, and they're doing their jobs like a lot of us, like a lot of us have to do in our jobs. Sometimes we have to do things that we don't approve of. So I definitely feel that you're right, that they definitely need to be honored. We may disagree with the reasons for the wars that are out there, whatever the wars are, whether they're wars or other wars, but those that have to do those battles, we definitely need to honor them on a regular basis. So I'm glad to see that this song has had that kind of impact with being out there and letting folks know that these people are doing some very brave jobs on a regular basis. And you're right, a lot of times, two things. One, I know that a good friend of mine had, it's actually a coworker. When I worked at a friend of my mom's construction management company, but there was a gentleman there. I don't even know if he's still living, but he definitely had that the initials that you just said, the post-traumatic syndrome and everything.
PTSD, right?
But,
yeah.
But I just remember literally, I think we were doing some work one time, and we all were in like a classroom kind of environment at one of our local colleges, and they were doing like some appraisals for finding out what buildings had asbestos and stuff like that, and he just had one of those attacks, and it can definitely throw you off if you're in the middle of it and you see these kinds of attacks going on and everything, because you don't know what's happening. You don't know. Unfortunately, he didn't have any sort of weapons or anything else around him, but you just seeing that person's reaction can definitely stun you sometimes.
Yeah, these people, they see things, horrifying things that the rest of us luckily don't have to see. And there's no way for you not to be affected by that. That's going to affect everybody, and to one degree or another. Maybe just a little bit or maybe a lot, but it's going to affect you. You can never be the same after you've seen, the things that they see over there. Sort of like policemen here, when they come upon a car accident, they're the first ones there. And emergency workers too, medical workers. They see things that we just don't see. And when we do see it, it's like very traumatic, right? Because we're not used to it. And a lot of the injuries we know about, when you come back from war, you're missing a hand or a foot or a leg, or, you have something wrong with you because of a physical attack, but it's also the mental part of it. Some of the injuries you can't see because they're inside you, they're in your brain, and they need help not to start their life over again, but to just start a next chapter of their life again. And that's what the NVF does. They help. All the people that work there are all veterans from the last several wars. And another thing you said was the song is not about war. It definitely is not. It's not pro-war. It's not anti-war. War is just a background character in the story. The song is about the veterans and what they go through when they're doing their work, especially if they get injured. But even if they don't get physically injured, every one of them is affected by what they've seen. If they serve in harm's way and they see terrible things. So anyway, I don't mean to get too heavy here, but I'm
that's
very
right.
happy
And you're
to be part of it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And then we'll get back into some of your music stuff as well, because you're right. Even with some of the other people that are involved in other fields and everything, because whether it's law, whether it's, police officers, whether it's doctors, as you just said, there's a church that meets out of one of the buildings that I work out now. The church is called Christ Central, but one of the families there, the gentleman is actually like a chef, but his wife is a preemie doctor. So she's seeing like these little babies that are like almost like as small as like a hamster or like a little small animal that's in that palm of her hands, and she has to put needles in them and everything. So how she copes with that on a daily basis, I know I could not do it. I haven't hard enough to have just any blood, so that I'm not a blood person. But to have to do that with something that small and
it's heartbreaking
at the beginning of their life. I'm sure that I can only imagine the stories that she shares with her husband and with their two kids, because like I said, just seeing that on a daily basis would be devastating to me. Now, one of your other songs, just to change the topic a little bit, but you are also a big fan, even though you're in Rhode Island, you're a big fan of the Heartland. So you did a lot of songs that had to do with the Heartland. So how did you come to be a fan of what people consider the Heartland of America, whether that's, I guess, Kansas, Oklahoma, or some of those places where the Dust Bowls are? But what about that appealed to you? Because you, like I said, you became a fan of that area. So I just wanted to know how you got involved in there, and definitely fits in with Americana, but definitely what drove you into that interest.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird coincidence in a way. I was writing songs. I mean, I'm from the South, but not from the Great Plains where the Dust Bowl happened. But I was writing a song one day, and it seemed, when you write a song, at least I do, I sort of blurt out crazy words and expressions just so I can sing the melody, even though the words will be changed later, but just to feel how the words fit with the melody and everything. And I kept singing about this drought, and I don't even know why. It's kind of crazy, and I don't want to write a song about a drought. That's kind of doesn't seem like a very good idea for a song. But you know what? I tried to change those words for weeks, and I could find other words that fit there, of course, but I never could find words that belonged there with that melody and just the whole way I was writing it. So I decided I had to figure it out. I had to make a song about a drought, even though I didn't think it was a good idea, but I said, well, I just have to do it. So I started looking on the internet for famous droughts, because I couldn't really think of one. And I came across the Dust Bowl immediately. And I remembered a tiny bit from school, but honestly, I think they probably covered it in 3 hours one day. And I might have even been absent that day. I don't know. I didn't remember much from school. But when I was looking at all the history of it, and by the way, it was in the 1930s in the Great Plains. The epicenter of it was kind of the Oklahoma Panhandle, which sits right over top of Texas. But it affected a third of the country, to one degree or another. That just happened to be the center of, like the eye of the storm, no pun intended. But it had so many ramifications, and there's so many themes in there, like how we manage our environment is a big one, how we handle immigration and migration. Because look at what we're facing right now with this migration crisis on the border. And at the same time, and there's big arguments now about how, what should we do? Should we let people in or should we not? You know what I mean? There's a big discussion. And back then, we had almost the same thing, except it was Americans, because 3.5 million people left the Great Plains to go other parts of America looking for work and food and everything else. And they weren't, when they descended on an area in large numbers, they weren't very popular. You can imagine in your town if all of a sudden 200,000 people showed up and none of them had a job or any money, and they just would live in fields. They lived in absolute poverty because they didn't have anything. Whatever they could put in their truck and bring from Oklahoma or Texas is what they had. They didn't have any cash by the time they got there. They didn't have any running water. They built a little shack out of whatever parts they could find on the side of the road and pieces of tin, and built a shack and lived in it and raised their families and tried to get work. And it was traumatic for the whole country, just like we're having the same trauma now. There were just so many themes, I thought, that really resonated with me. It was also the time of the Great Depression in the 30s, and people really had nothing. So I just got fascinated by the whole thing, and I did a whole lot of research for several years, and I was writing songs the whole time. I probably wrote 30 or 40 songs, and I finally had to choose the ones I liked the best and which kind of fit together the best, and I just made the whole album about set in that time of the Dust Bowl. I mean, it's meant to be a record you'd listen to and enjoy it. You know, just you don't have to know anything about the Dust